I could see it up there. I could see it up there. I'm like, where is this? Where is the owl at? Because I see the.
Right. Yes.
Oh, it is like
How did your
Yeah. Yeah. We got a minute left.
gonna let Matt
30
know.
seconds?
Matt,
Seems like this might be a little bit.
Matt, we have people in the audience for public comment, so I think I'll let them.
I think that'd be good. Yeah. Okay. And do we need to send them that message or?
Yes, I haven't let them know yet.
Do you have a keyboard?
Hey, Drew? To make this operate, do I need to be up here for this one?
Only if you want to mute it, I don't need that.
Okay. I think I'm gonna move this out of the way for the owl and then in your opening comments, we
Yep.
might just
Yep.
get them to acknowledge that we're gonna be on for a couple minutes.
Okay, I can do that.
That clock is way off of
Yeah.
Garden City times. Garden City times a minute behind. It's like everybody else's time.
All right.
53 seconds.
There you go. Hello. Good evening. This is a great crowd. Thank you all for coming tonight. We do have a presentation on our agenda. However, because we do have people in the audience who are here for public comment, we'll go ahead and do that first. And then we'll get to the presentation that Hunden is doing about Finney County facilities and needs assessments. So if there's somebody who would like to come up for public comment, you can talk. We've got 5 minutes per person, and so you're welcome. But when you do come up, please state your name for the record. And there will be no action taken. I just want you to all to know that this is public comment and it's not a business meeting, so there won't be any action taken this evening. But we'd love to hear what you have to say.
I don't know, 5 minutes is long enough. But I want to tell you, my name is Holly Lyons. I'm here with neighbors and friends of mine. I am a native of Garden City. I've lived here my entire life. I love the city and I love how it's grown. And I think that we've done many awesome things. But I want to talk to you about something that is not awesome. And I'm with Wilson Edition and Colony Edition. What I'd like to talk about is we moved into our house in 1994. I had a first grader and a third grader, and now they are 36 and 38. So I'm probably the OG of Wilson Edition. Lived there for 29 years. And we lived there the first 19 years and never had a drop of water in our basement. And yes, we have heavy rains. If you're from Garden City, you know it used to rain a lot, rain for days. And never did our basement leak, which it still doesn't. And never did I have, pardon me for being rude, but other people's turds floating around in my basement. Since 2013, our basement has flooded 4 times. Every time from the city sewer system. Now, a lot's changed in Garden City, and there's been a lot of growth. But a lot of that growth has been on our end of the sewer system. And that growth started about the time that my basement started flooding. And I would like the city to know how awful this is, to have to refinish your basement 4 times in 10 years. Now, I've had many conversations, or at least one that's memorable, with Mr. Matt Allen. And I have to say, excuse me now, I found him to be rude and arrogant and condescending. And what he's informed me basically is, it's our fault. Our house doesn't have a backflow preventer, but it does. And it does. You just can't tell me that this is the fault of our houses when for 19 years, not a drop of sewage came in my basement. And this last time, not only, now they've said, oh, that was rainwater. I don't care if it's rainwater. It came through the sewer. There were still turds in it. There was still paper, toilet paper. We need to take a look. I know we spent $2 million, I think, in the last bond on the Jen Barker Road. And I was hoping, so hopeful, that maybe alleviating some of the problem there would flow over to us. But it obviously did nothing because we're in the same situation. And something needs to be done. Somebody needs to listen to us. You know, I could tear up my basement floor and put in a sump pump that I never needed before. But I pay taxes. And with that tax money, I expect a working sewer system. Maybe if you want to take the cost of putting in a sump pump in my basement that I only need because your sewer system is inadequate, maybe take that cost off my property tax and we'll talk about it. But I would just assume that we fix that sewer system. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hi, my name's Debbie Foster, and I've lived in Garden for the last 23 years and all, and I live at the corner of Colony and Oakley, which is just across the bypass from where she lives. We have lived there going on, I think it's 8 years now. The last 2 years, I have had gray water come up from the sewer twice, same times that she had. I've had several neighbors, and one across the street that had a foot of sewer water, including turds and things like that. And they, at that time 2 years ago, dug up their cement in the basement and put in an additional black coat, and it flooded again with the new owners that are there now. I know they're not here, but anyway, so I just wanted to bring Ms. Holly my concerns about the sewer system, because before, our carpet was only 2 years old and we had to, redo everything. $17,000 worth of repairs and all. And this time, we didn't have as much drywall that was ruined. We had 2 walls that had drywall ruined, but we had to pull all the carpet up again. And so now we've got to figure out what we're going to do for flooring in the basement in case it would ever happen again, because we don't want to have 2 years down the road have to replace our carpet again. And it's a cost and all. So anyway, I just wanted to voice my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to comment? Oh,
Hi, Phil Escarino. I'm here representing the Kansas Wildlife Parks Commission. They will be having a meeting next Thursday, starting at noon down at the zoo. And I'd like to invite everybody to attend if they would like to attend, if they have concerns or anything they'd like to bring up for the Wildlife Parks Commission.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Christina Reese, and I'm also here. I live on Susan Street. And kind of, I just wanted to allude to what they said. I've lived in that house probably 9 years, and the last 2 years, same thing. I had the sewer come up, and I think more than anything, it's a heartache. It takes a lot to get people to come out, do the cleaning, people to come out and do the repairs. I have 3 kids, 2 of them sleep down there. And it's been very hard because you have to move them around and figure out a plan. And like for me this last time, it took a while because obviously there were a lot of residents in Garden City that had issues. So it took a while for the companies to come out. And it was just a hassle. It didn't work out. They came out several times. And actually I've been dealing with the cough ever since then. And so I went to the doctor. They found some calcified glucomas in my lungs, and I'm like, I don't know where that came from, because I've never had that before. And he was like, hey, did that have mold in your house? You need to mention that to the doctors. And I haven't, so I don't know if it's part of that, but I wanted to bring it up because it is kind of, like she said, we pay taxes, we do what we can for the city, and so we're just we just feel that we're not being heard and something needs to be done. Whatever that is, if we have to work together, we can, but there is something that needs to be done. So just wanted to point that out as well.
Right,
It's very
you bet, thank you. Anybody else like to come up? We do appreciate you taking the time to come up here, especially during public comment. I know that that does take a lot to come up and talk in front of people, especially knowing that it's on camera. But I do know that we have your names, and so I'm sure we'll be working with people to be able to help find a resolution and see what we can do. So any comments that you all would like to make? Okay.
No, yeah, I just wanted to say, yeah, and I mean, I know it's a hardship, and especially with families, and so we appreciate you making the comments, because we would have never known had you not said something. And so you saying that, I mean, publicly is even harder, and so you saying something, that means that we hopefully can work toward resolution, and then, just to make sure that we are, working toward, again, we appreciate you being taxpayers and also living here, most of your life, and so it's important. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I say something?
Of course, you can, why don't you come up to the microphone so that you
It's
can hear
just
you.
surprising to me that you do not know this, considering this affects more than 40 families, 40 homes in that area. Not every time. It's not a little thing. And I would think that somebody would have reported this to you, because twice, 2 of the 4 times, when they found the city to be at fault, once the sewer just failed the first time on our end, and once the alarm that tells them the sewer failed. So, and they were insurance claims. And so the people who knew about this in the neighborhood, or who spoke English or read English, they were lucky enough to get help from the city's insurance. It still doesn't begin to cover what it costs. Just the cleanup the last time in our basement was $13,000. And I think we did end up getting $27,000. But when you have to cut off sheetrock, when you have to redo everything, it's not a drop in the basement, so to speak.
Right.
But, so I'm just surprised that as commissioners, nobody's informed you of this, because like I said last time, it was worse than this time, and there were more than 40 families.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. Any other comments? All right. Again, thank you for coming. And as I said, we hope that we'll, be in touch, that somebody will be in touch, and we can kind of work through it. But again, because it's not a business meeting, there isn't any action that we can take. But please know that your concerns are heard, and that we did write this down. And so again, thank you for coming. Appreciate it. Okay. Anyone else? All right, next up, we have a presentation from Hunden Strategic Partners, talking about the facilities, community facilities, and needs assessment.
Do we have a representative from Hunden? Matt, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I can't hear you guys too well. I have my volume all the way up, but can you say one more thing?
Yeah, can you hear us a little bit better now? Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess we'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Matt, if you want to go ahead and start your presentation.
Okay, perfect. Let me share my screen really quick and go to the full screen. Well, hello everyone. It's great to be here, and unfortunately we could not be in person today, but excited to present our results of our Finney County Community Facilities and Needs Assessment. And today I'm really going to focus on our executive summary of our draft report, which is a lengthy deliverable of over 150 slides. However, today I'm really going to focus on that executive summary of our draft findings. So to begin the presentation, I just want to go over a little bit of what we covered throughout our community facilities needs assessment and the areas of our analysis. So today we'll focus on that executive summary. However, really the bulk of our analysis focused on stakeholder feedback and engagement when we came to the market several months ago and had over 30 participants in the room for really a broad conversation about the area, the assets, as well as areas of opportunity, which you'll see some of the feedback and implications based on the Mentimeter survey that we did of that stakeholder group. And then we took a close look at the economic and demographic makeup of Finney County, and then went into the market analysis, beginning with conference and meetings facilities, hotels, sports tourism and athletic facilities, shopping, dining, and entertainment, which you all do very well in the shopping space, and retail, and then wrapping up with festivals, events, and attractions, and recreation, parks, and nature-oriented assets, and then resulted in our implications and recommendations. But at a high level, our study was focused on taking a close look at the community facilities within Finney County and coming up with potential opportunity items for tourism and visitor-inducing assets for the county, with the goals of maximizing revenue generation for the county and creating a better place to live, but also visit and work for not only the local residents, but the surrounding region as a whole. So moving on to the beginning of the executive summary, our project objectives throughout our analysis really take this framework throughout these types of studies, beginning with the Where Are You Now section, which really is a close assessment of your all's assets, looking at the visitation trends, the overall quality and attributes of those facilities, as well as performance metrics as those all are available. Then we move into the How You Stack Up, which is really a close look at the surrounding competitive communities to you all, but also a quick look at other areas across the country and communities that are similar to Finney County, and what are some of the things that they are doing to create a strong visitor economy. And then from there, we come up with our opportunities, which are based on those two assessments of the Where Are You Now and How You Stack Up. And really this positions to create a stronger, more robust overall tourism and visitor package for Finney County. And then finally, the execution phase is how we get there, which is really a broad framework of the short and medium and long-term strategic action plan items to bring some of these ideas and opportunities to fruition in the future, and some steps that we would like to see the county take and can assist in many in terms of going after and really executing on some of the key opportunity areas identified throughout the study process. So beginning with the Where Are You Now, this is a close look at your all's assets. And we do a comprehensive analysis based on a ranking of minimal or limited, weak, and minimal, moderate, good, and strong based on your all supply, and then looking at hotel room night generation and visitor spending at a broad level of the specified categories. And those grading scales are based on our analysis of your all's assets and that benchmark against comparable communities, and really just helps to get a relative framework based on those categories and how they relate to each other in terms of overall performance and distribution across your all's community. So beginning with the convention and conference space, the supply is currently minimal, with the top assets being the Fairgrounds, the Clarion, and the Sleep Inn. However, there's 3 proposed projects in the works that will introduce meeting space to your all's market that we'll chat about here in a sec. with the Garden City Community College Fine Arts Building with approximately 9,800 square feet of space. The Sports of the World potentially proposing 10,000 square feet of space. And then finally at 409 North Main, which I believe is the old Wharton building, which is proposing between 15,000 and upwards of 30,000 square feet of flexible event space, with all three of these having a different lean and focus, which we'll chat about here in a sec. And then finally, currently for hotel room night generation and visitor spend, limited in week for the convention and conference space based on current supply. However, those will likely change with the introduction of these potential new projects. In terms of hotel supply, the supply is currently moderate, with the Hampton Inn, Town Place Suites, and Comfort Inn, as well as the Clarion being the top assets, with the Heritage Inn and Suites being a closure recently, which we feel is a strong opportunity to refill that closure of that property with a new product in the market and potentially more with new demand drivers coming from Sports of the World and others that we'll chat about here in a sec. Hotel room night generation for the supply is limited in week, and the reason for that is most of the assets of hotels are not necessarily unique and inducing demand, but they are accommodating existing demand from other areas. So they're not necessarily inducers, but rather accommodators of demand, which we can touch on here shortly if there are any questions in that area. But the visitor spend is moderate for the hotel category based on the current supply. Moving on to sports, the current supply is good to strong, with Sports of the World being a strong asset that is currently under construction, which will introduce a whole new market to Garden City and the Finney County area, introducing substantial sports tourism, which will likely support additional development. And it's one of our key opportunity areas, not necessarily the facility itself, however, the surrounding built infrastructure within the Starbond district, which I'll chat about here shortly. And then the Peebles and Buster Park, as well as Buffalo Dunes and Southwind, with the two golf courses, are two other strong assets. And then in the proposed, I mentioned Sports of the World, but also the Bronxbuster Arena at the Community College is another strong asset that is currently underway and proposed. And then in terms of hotel room night generation, it's currently moderate for sports, however, will likely change substantially with the sports tourism of Sports of the World. And for specific groups such as Buffalo Dunes and Southwind that hold golf tournaments, certain times of year, obviously those induce substantial visitation and room nights. However, overall sports as a whole, the room night generation is moderate. Visitor spend is good for sports, as people typically spend money in local restaurants and retail assets while they're here in the local area. So that results in a good category or a good ranking for visitor spending. In terms of shopping, dining, and entertainment, you all do very well in this category with a good to strong ranking. However, there currently is no real compelling assets, which is an area of opportunity we believe for you all to leverage, especially with some strong demand drivers coming online here shortly. The key assets in terms of shopping, dining, and entertainment: Walmart, Home Depot, Dillon's Eastgate Plaza, Schulman Crossing as a whole, as well as Target, and then downtown Garden City being that area of more authentic offerings to you all and really an area that's walkable. However, we believe there can be that space within your all's community can be further leveraged, especially with the downtown master plan. And we really wanted our analysis to synergize well with that and not be duplicative. In terms of hotel room night generation for this category, it is good and visitor spend is strong for the shopping, dining, and entertainment category. Now moving on to the rec parks and nature assets, the supply is moderate to good with several assets that are strong in terms of Stevens Park, Finnett Park, Garden Rapids at the Big Pool, and Parrot Cove with two water-oriented assets, and then the new skate park as well being a strong introduction to the market. This category is slightly more community benefit leaning rather than tourism and visitor leaning. The hotel room night generation is limited to week, and then visitor spend is moderate. And then finally, in our last category, festivals, events, and attractions, the supply is currently moderate. And these two categories have some gray area and overlap. However, the top assets are Finney County Fairgrounds, Lee Richardson Zoo, the County Fair, and Beef Empire Days, and 2 strong events. The hotel room night generation is moderate as a whole for this category, however, could lean into the good ranking, and then visitor spend is moderate. For some of those events that are one-time events, they can produce strong room night generation and visitor spend. However, as a whole, those are the rankings for that category. So now I want to talk a little bit about our asset analysis and how we went about it utilizing our Placer.ai geofencing technology, which I know you all are subscribed to. And this slide shows at a high level that analysis, which I understand this is probably hard to see for a number of you in the room. But this analysis really takes a look at all of your all's assets that were pictured on the last slide, and ranks them by 2022 visitation, looking at total unique visitors as well as total visits. And I want to define those currently so there's clear understanding from everyone in the room. But a visitor is defined as an individual person that visits a POI, not accounting for multiple visits. So for example, those that are local that go to Home Depot 12 times, it'll only count them as one individual visitor. And then a visit counts those as 12. So your all's top 5 assets in 2022 were Schulman Crossing at number 1, Walmart Garden City at number 2, the Home Depot retail area, which includes Home Depot, but also Sam's Club and the adjacent smaller retail offerings, and then Dillon's Eastgate Plaza at 4, and then Target Garden City at 5. The following ranking you'll see in terms of the color coding shows 6 to 10 and then 11 through 35. And this analysis also includes a distribution of those visits within Finney County, but then the number of visits from outside Finney County, and then the total visits from outside of the state of Kansas, which I want to emphasize here because when we flip to the next slide, this now ranks that same distribution by total visits outside of the state of Kansas. So this is where we really get to see the interesting analysis in terms of what changes. So ranking by total visits outside of the state of Kansas, you see some movement with Stevens Park dropping fairly substantially, many of the retail assets staying quite high. Although receiving significant local usage, those are the main assets that are accommodating people from outside of the state and where they're currently stopping over while they are in Finney County. Some of the hotel assets moved up slightly, and really it's just super interesting to see how the distribution changed over all of the assets. And then the final ranking I'll get to here now ranks that same list by the percentage of visits from outside Finney County. And with that black line distinguishing all the hotels, which are at the top list, obviously with a strong percentage coming from outside of Finney County due to the nature of the hotel business. But what I want to point out here is the first non-hotel property is Parrot Cove Indoor Water Park, with 60% of total visits coming from outside of Finney County, showing the capabilities of the indoor water park to induce substantial visitation from outside of the county. And then a few others, Lee Richardson Zoo with 56 or 57 approximate % coming from outside of the county. And then Finney County Historical Museum, although not receiving a strong number of total visits, having a strong percentage of relative visits from outside of the county. And one thing I want to point out before I move to the next slide, one thing with our analysis here for all the assets we analyzed, the total volume of visitation is very important at the bottom there to understand your all's total visitor or your all's total visitor economy. So in 2022, after summing up all the total unique visitors, that's at about 1.89 million people in 2022, obviously with a substantial amount being from within Finney County, but you can see those totals to the right in terms of total visits from outside of the state for 2022. So that gives us a little bit of a sense of total visitor volume. And then in the future, as new assets come online, we can actually reassess how the total visitor volume changes over time with new assets being introduced. So just a quick look there at total visitation is important to take into account. So moving now to our summary of our recommendations, based on our analysis of the where are you now and how you stack up, the key areas of opportunity that we believe the county can really leverage and go after here in the coming months and the coming year begin with the key activity node feasibility and economic impact, which would really focus on the Starbond District, creating a supportive, walkable amenity package of assets that can really be a node of activity for Finney County. That it already is, but really creating something similar to what has been seen in Blue Hawk and Overland Park, creating a walkable environment that really leverages that sports visitation as well as the visitation induced by the Parrot Cove as well as other assets. And then number two, looking at the fairgrounds enhancement and expansion study. The fairgrounds is such a strong asset, however, there's some challenges with the facility currently. And you'll see on the following slide some great drawings of a preliminary look at how the fairgrounds might look in some time with some enhancements. However, a fairgrounds enhancement and expansion study would really begin to create a strong node of event activity and really leverage the current fair and other events at the facility to create a more cohesive event ecosystem in Finney County. And then finally, looking at a restaurant and entertainment attraction and impact study, and this would focus on attracting tenants and concepts that will enhance the quality of life and induce visitors to Finney County. We understand that on the retail and restaurant space, you all are currently handcuffed slightly in terms of bringing in new concepts or tenants that currently don't come to you all because of the significant distance or logistical challenges with some of those operators. And we believe with some enhancements and looking at Sports of the World and other assets and showing off the visitation that you all induce, there's the potential to bring in some new operators and concepts in the restaurant and entertainment space. So wrapping up with our summary matrix before I get to the drawings that Convergence Design provided with David Greisel. But beginning with the conference and meeting space, we believe the opportunity is moderate to good. With the three planned projects with the Fine Arts Center, the event, downtown reuse of event space, as well as Sports of the World, we find it imperative that the county really focus on supporting these projects and making sure that they go forward. There is opportunity in the conference and meeting space, and these three proposed projects really fill a void in the market of the conference and meeting space. And really the three different focuses of these projects will really create a strong atmosphere for events in Finney County. And then finally, in the short term, on the conference and meeting side, looking at a Finney County Fairgrounds renovation and expansion, as I noted, which will show a little teaser of what that future fairgrounds could look like. And then moving forward to the hotel opportunity, the opportunity is good with additional select service hotels adjacent to Sports of the World, filling that gap in the market of the current closure, and potentially even additional select service hotels that we would hope for a higher end brand to be accompanied there. However, really beginning with similar higher end, mid to upper mid scale select service offerings. And then potentially in the long term, looking at a boutique hotel in downtown Garden City, which would likely be at a lower key count, but really focusing on creating a hotel in downtown that would lean into your all's history and authenticity, and would be a place that people would want to visit as they're driving through. Looking at sports, the opportunity is strong and in process with Sports of the World. We find it imperative to support the Sports of the World project and the Garden City Community College Rodeo Arena, and then conducting a master plan and feasibility in the Starbond District to support the Sports of the World project, but also creating a strong, walkable, attractive environment within the Starbond District that will maximize revenues of that Starbond, but will also create substantial visitor spend in the local economy. And then in the medium and long term, enhancing the outdoor fields in Finney County across the county is an opportunity on the outdoor space, because Sports of the World is a strong indoor asset. In terms of shopping, dining, and entertainment, the opportunity is strong. In the short term, conducting a master plan and feasibility in the Starbond District, as I noted, and then looking at downtown as an opportunity to support the overall master plan and figuring out concepts that could go into downtown to create a more walkable, attractive environment. And then looking at some of those redevelopment options with the State Theater redevelopment or other key assets that can be leveraged to create a strong downtown environment, which we've seen such a resurgence of small downtowns all across the country in the recent years. And then finally, in the medium and long term, the execution of the build out of the Starbond District and downtown Garden City. And then moving forward to the Rec, Parks, and Nature Assets category, the opportunity is limited to moderate, with the primary reason being that this category is typically more of a community and quality of life category. However, certain communities really lean in on this. However, typically it takes a lot until you can really create substantial visitor spending within this category. However, in the medium and long term, enhancement of Stevens Park and Finnitt Park, as well as supporting and retaining golf course events, is a strong opportunity and should be supported by the county. And then finally, for major events and attractions, before I get to the drawings and we wrap up, the opportunity is good, focusing on the Finney County Fairgrounds renovation and expansion, and then in the long term, State Theater redevelopment, and what that might look like in the future, looking at a number of different options that might focus on entertainment or other unique concepts of maybe introducing a brewery or distillery or something like that that can really be unique, which we've seen across the country be a major trend. So now to wrap up with a few inspiration drawings from Convergence Design. Unfortunately, David Greisel couldn't join us tonight. He's on vacation and had this booked a number of months ago, so I will cover it for him. But this begins to take a quick look at the future Starbond District in terms of reimagining the space to create a more walkable, cohesive environment. Obviously, the county doesn't hold significant interest in this area, however, can be significantly supportive of private sector development and incentivizing some of these projects to create a strong walkable environment. Really, this plan here focuses along the walkable strip of LaRue Road, creating more walkability and enhancements of infrastructure, including more greenery and adding a few more restaurants that are walkable to the Sports of the World project. And you can really imagine that many of those visitors for tournament activities, Sports of the World, will spill out and walk over to those restaurant offerings that are currently there, but adding more will really be attractive and can capture more visitor spend that will likely be leaked to other communities if not added within this district. This plan also adds a few new hotels adjacent to Sports of the World, as well as looks at the community college land for a future event center, although not out in our current opportunities could be a long-term plan that is a placeholder for that site to really bring activity into the district, because really we want to focus on consistent activity and no real downtime. So including another event facility within this could be a strong option, or expanding on that commercial footprint in the future. However, this is really a long-term planning strategy shown here. And then finally, looking at the Fayette County Fairgrounds and enhancement. So what David has shown here with this plan adds in enhancements to the current built space, as well as shows the new rodeo arena and creating a cohesive environment between those two spaces that can be sold for larger events. And then really enhances the overall campus in terms of filling in some of the dirt space with pavers, bringing in some more green space, and then adds in an RV parking and camping space towards the northwestern portion of the site, which can really leverage some of that visitation from the RV goers and those with trailers, capturing them to stay a little bit longer in the local area. And then finally looks at some future exhibit venues towards the western portion of the fairgrounds, and then provides a placeholder for a future event venue towards the southeastern portion of the fairgrounds that would likely be in the long term. However, we believe could really leverage and create the strong fairgrounds for you all that will induce not only just from the region, but from across the state and into surrounding states. So then finally wrapping up here with our summary matrix on the execution side. Really, this is how we get there in terms of a strong partnership into the future for some of these key opportunity items, beginning with vision alignment, then moving forward into the feasibility and financing strategies portion, which will really look at how we can get these funded and different mechanisms that we can utilize in terms of getting some of these projects funded. And then finally looking at development strategies and then final execution of those key strategic items that we've identified opportunities in. So that wraps up my presentation. There's a number of other slides here, but I would love to open it up to the room for questions or comments, and happy to answer any as it pertains to what I shared today.
Okay, well, I have a couple of things, and most of it has to pertain to some of the stuff. Some of it's the things in the report. I couldn't see really well that what you had the numbers for Shulman Crossing, but it looked like it was a little bit closer to what I was seeing when I pulled the Placer data. In the report that I have, the copy that I have, it's 1 million visitors. It looks like it's 2 point something at the top there. I can't 2 point something. When I pulled it, it was 3 million visits per year, which is my Maui fact. So that's good that got updated. And then another question I had was that where was Sam's Club? And you said it's in with the Home Depot?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that Home Depot retail area includes Home Depot, Sam's Club, and those small retail that line the street there. And then, yes, I updated Shulman Crossing. It's at 2.55 total visits for 2022. And that discrepancy from 3, I believe there's a few small individual retail assets that we left off, which are across LaRue Road.
Right, yeah. And I included just whatever was inside the Shulman Crossing district. No big deal. I just couldn't tell for sure because the text is too small up there. On page 12 that you said to select a hotel adjacent to the Sports of the World. What's your suggestion for the city or county involvement with that, since that's a private developer?
Yeah, so happy to chat through that. Typically what that would be with a select service hotel similar to that, likely it would just be supporting the surrounding infrastructure for a property like that, and really it would be a closed assessment of the current hotel that is there, the closed heritage, and looking at, what the future of that looks like. So really it would warrant an in-depth look, but for a select service hotel, that would likely warrant no major county participation for the development of that. However, focusing on the surrounding environment for any infrastructure needs for that might be needed.
Okay, so just typical development support.
Yep.
Okay. On page 21 of the report that I have, and I'll just summarize it so you don't have to go scrambling through the report. It says Findlay County's lower socioeconomic profile creates challenges when assessing markets for a number of developments. So if we look at the median household income for Findlay County, we're 15th out of 105, which would put us in almost the top 10% of median household incomes. So when we're talking about low socioeconomic status of Findlay County, and then if we go to 1 mile out, we're actually, and then you say that 1 mile out is another county, that would be the 10th out of 105 highest median household incomes. So what are you trying to get to in that piece where we say we have a low socioeconomic status, and that makes it difficult at the same time of having one of the highest median household incomes in the state?
Let me get to that slide really quick, Shane. You said 21, it might be different in my version.
Yeah, it's not going to be in there. It's going to be just in the overall report, where you're just talking about community profile kind of things.
Yes. So let me go to this slide right here. So typically in terms of, when we look at communities and we gauge the overall socioeconomic profile, it's a key factor to look at in our analysis. And really the main thing here is, these categories in terms of tapestry are broken up by, category and then demographics. So looking at that number one, forging opportunity, that median household income is slightly challenged or lower than the overall community as a whole in terms of median, with a high distribution of your all's community. So when we go through these analyses, we just want to make sure that we take that into account with our recommendations and thoroughly understand that, going into our analyses. Obviously, when we're focused more on the visitor economy and tourism, we want to understand that, but we also want to make sure that we're taking it into account. I don't know if that helped answer your question, but really it's just to make sure that we have a complete understanding of the community, especially being outsiders. We want to make, and that's why our stakeholder engagement is so important, is we want to hear those voices of those in the community. So I don't know if that helps answer that, if you have a follow-up, but.
Yeah, I guess I have a little bit of insider information just because I just got done with a presentation with Placer about the tapestry segmentation. So I do follow what you're saying there somewhat. I still would say that our overall being in the higher end of median household incomes might be a conflict with that statement. Then just a couple other things. You note that the most people, it's in the report, it says most people work within the meatpacking industry. And I would say that our meatpacking plant is probably the largest single employer, but I wouldn't say most people work in the meatpacking industry. So I saw that. I sent that email about the Walmart trade, like the whole issue with our trade areas, where the trade area map, that it's, so if you're looking here, you don't get to see it, it was in the full report. But it was breaking down Western Kansas into trade areas, and it had like Lamar, I don't remember which Lamar, I think it was. Lamar's, everything broken down by Walmart's, where people go for trade area and buy their Walmarts. And according to that map, it says that Denver is in Lamar's trade area because there's a significant amount of people there. Do you really think that people in Denver shop at Lamar's Walmart as part of its trade area?
Yeah, so happy to answer that. That analysis is obviously taking a high-level look at where the visitation is coming from. So obviously they aren't routine shoppers of that Walmart. And what that map is showing is it's not copy and pasting Placer's true trade area.
Right.
What that map is showing is we're taking their true trade area and applying it to our own mapping. So I I do agree with you. We could probably edit that to take out the Denver market. So that could probably be next there. The goal of that, and the reason why we only use Walmart, is because that's really a good proxy for our analysis, because we know where those other Walmarts are. And if we look just at Schulman Crossing, obviously the other areas don't have that same retail makeup.
Right.
We have a similar large center. However, comparing apples to apples of an individual Walmart helps us get a sense of relative comparability of those boundaries. And one thing that the true trade area has a slight restriction on the polygons is it only bounds you to 100 miles. So
Right.
I know you all have placers, so we can go back and forth on all these details, but with that polygon analysis, it restricts you slightly.
The only thing I'd comment on that is if we're looking at this at the level of tourism and people coming to visit, I don't think Walmart is your best. I think we are talking about how many people are coming here for Sam's Club and Target and Schulman Crossing and those kinds of things. You wouldn't say if we're going to compare Garden City to Denver, we're not going to count how many people go to Meow Wolf or how many people go to the Broncos or anything like that, because that is why people are going to those. So I am hesitant to believe that the trade area of Western Kansas is defined by, especially when we're talking about this. I'm not saying day-to-day shopping. They'll go to Dillon's, they'll go to Walmart on the day-to-day shopping based on that map. Maybe not people from Denver to Lamar. But when we're talking about this level of report, I don't think we should be using Walmart as the way to define those boundaries. And I think in an urban setting, it probably does make sense, and it does kind of tell us that stuff. But when we're talking about rural communities, people, I mean, another thing that it shows is that people from Wichita are going to Dodge City's Walmart to shop. That's not happening. So that's another thing, and that's just something to talk about. Sorry, everybody else. So this is I just went through this report and had things. In the report, it says we don't have any locations that can do ticketed events. I'm pretty sure that Horace Good and the high school, both of those are set up to be able to do ticketed events. I think we do. I mean, I know we do with school stuff. We don't do it with all the other stuff. Yeah.
So we probably should have specified there, when we say ticketed events, really we need to say ticketed and promoted. So when we say ticketed events, we don't necessarily mean community ticketed events, but rather more so ticketed entertainment from a promoter that's coming in. So for example, if you go to a concert at United Wireless in Dodge City, that's more so the caliber that we mean, less so a basketball game at the community college, which even though it is ticketed, it's not necessarily, a promoted large event. It's one that would be held at a facility like that. So that's more so what we mean, so I can make sure to edit that in the report.
Yeah, okay.
But really, we probably needed to be a little more specific there.
Right. And I can understand the magnitude of a difference between what's going on at United Wireless versus high school. But I mean, I think Southwest Kansas Live is a promoted, I mean, we bring in musicians from outside the area, but anyway, that's besides the point. Sorry, I'll skip some just to. There's just a couple other things that I can just include on just to report back to you. So I think that pretty much. Oh, I do have one question with that table that you were showing on page 8, and you're looking at the total visitors at the bottom of it. You were just pointing that out. Do you know? Yeah. So slide 8.
Yep.
Is that total, it keeps on flipping, there you go. Well, is that total at the bottom where we're saying, like 11 million visitors? That means that if somebody goes to Walmart and Target in the same trip, that counts for 2 in that case there, right?
Yep, so there's a little bit, and that's why I wanted to specify there that it begins to paint a picture of total relative visitor volume.
Right.
But it's not perfect because obviously there is some cross-pollination there where people will visit multiple of these assets. But what we like to do, and we could honestly probably, based on the prior post within Placer, which I'm sure you've looked at, we could probably provide almost like a discount factor to pull that back a little bit. But really, it just starts to give a high level of, hey, this is kind of a high level sense of our total visit or visitor volume. And what that helps do is then in the future, Shannon, we can go back and say, hey, in a year, let's double check this because we have the data now, and obviously we could go run it in Placer and look at 2019 and prior. But this helps set a baseline for 2022, and then we could run it again if we wanted to. It would be kind of a heavy lift with all the data, but it could be done.
Cool. Thanks, Matt.
Well, yeah, so I had a couple of questions on, so I'm looking at page 6. I don't know if that's the same. It's the summary matrix. So it looks like we had a couple of areas that were strong, and maybe we could do something to enhance those especially. So will the Pacer data in the future, or I don't know if you're going to follow up on this report, but the Garden City Plaza and then the developments just right across the street is going to have a lot of new opportunities. Well, they're bringing in Kohl's and also Burlington Coat Factory, so there's going to be a major remake. Will that also enhance that? And did you offer any suggestions, and I hadn't gotten to review everything, to really keep people here overnight for shopping? Because I know those areas are going to really enhance, because I know right now that they have a new Starbucks that's a drive-through, and they have several other stores planned. Will that be located with a Target Pacer data, or will it have its own individual data so that we can track how that's doing?
Yeah, so we can slice and dice that however you would like. So we can draw our own individual polygons, and what we did here for these large tables is obviously we clumped some of the main retail nodes together. Obviously, Schulman Crossing, Home Depot includes Home Depot, Sam's Club, and the other assets, but we can look at each of those individual assets. It would just make this table so much larger. And we wanted to include some of those smaller assets in here because, again, they're within different categories. You'll see within the full report and really the appendix, each section has a close look at each category. So it's a little easier to see, but that's expanded slightly on those individual assets. So yes, we can do that for individual assets and show how they stabilize once they're delivered.
Yeah, because it seems skewed on the eastern side of town rather than, there's really nothing that really stood out, on the western side of town. So I didn't know if there's any enhancements or things that you suggested in order to really build that, other than, when you have the southwest part of town where it's the Finney County Fairgrounds, which was really something that we'd have to partner somehow with the county on, and also I think with the Garden City Community College. So the other one I thought was interesting was you talked about sports. And then hotel room night generation. Were there any ideas that you provided or suggestions or long-term or short-term suggestions on how to increase that hotel night generation? It looks like everything else was really good or strong, but I was curious about the hotel room night generation.
Yep, so here, and I'm going in multiple directions here, but let me get back to this slide. Yeah, so really on the sports space, in terms of hotel room night generation, one of the big things is it's kind of an if you build it, they will come. So you all are, obviously, the Sports of the World is going to bring a tournament caliber facility to your Hall's town. That will induce significant tournaments if it is pushed forward and promoted properly to induce those tournaments, which we believe it will. So that will begin to really fill room nights for you all based on those tournaments. However, one area that we see municipalities go wrong in is they build these large facilities that are tournament caliber facilities, and they don't set in place strong priority measures in terms of usage of indoor court space or indoor field space. And what results is the local community teams end up filling all the calendar, and the tournaments kind of get pushed to the secondary priority. And then what happens is the hotels don't see as big of a benefit. The local restaurants don't see as big of a benefit from the teams that are coming in. So really what we push forward for these youth sports facilities that are large and tournament caliber facilities is making sure that there's a strong priority system in place, similar to what you see in convention centers in terms of booking windows for a facility like that. So it prioritizes on those key weekends tournament-inducing events that really can maximize the economic impact for hotels and spending in the restaurants. So that would be our recommendation. We'd love to help with setting those priority measures in place. And then really the weekdays would be for all of the local usage. So that's really how we see these facilities maximizing their local impact.
And then the final thing, when you talk about walkability, especially of the Sports of the World and over on the Shulman Crossing, so are you suggesting slowing down traffic? Are you suggesting, of course we're going to do sidewalks and those things. Are there any suggestions that you are making in that area specifically to help with that walkability? Because I mean, from what the plans, we just seen the preliminary plans, but are there things that you're specifically saying? Because I mean, the road out there, it comes off of a bypass, which is no longer a bypass, but it comes off of that, and so you have a lot of traffic. So were there some things that you're considering with walkability in order for people to maybe cross from the Sports of the World over to Shulman Crossing for shopping or get to hotels?
Yeah, definitely. I think it really comes down to, and I think David's drawing starts to begin to give a look and feel to that, but so much of walkability is not necessarily the slowing down of traffic or putting things in place to really impede traffic, but it's more so just creating a strong look and feel to the environment and creating strong sidewalks and pathways for those people to make the space feel inviting. So I think that's one thing that would really warrant that strong master plan, but really creating a strong look and feel there and creating having those sidewalks maybe have a little bit more activity, having art out. So when those people are driving by, they don't see it as just passing by nothing. It's something like, hey, I want to be in this space. And it kind of starts to begin to create a critical mass of activity. So I think it's more so on the built environment of the infrastructure, more so than physical restrictions or slowing down traffic. But that could be something that would definitely be looked at.
Because I know in larger cities, they'll put medians in the middle of, roads and then put trees. And so you have, like you said, art pieces or whatever, but it makes the roads feel smaller, but it also slows it down to where you feel more residential rather than a commercial. So I was wondering if that's what you were getting at in that area of Shulman Crossing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Definitely along that framework, and really it would warrant working closely with David and others potentially at how that space could be reimagined with the infrastructure. But yeah.
I don't have much of a question for you, Matt, but I think if you want to your screen is flashing on and off if you want to try to fix that on your end. It's kind of making us all dizzy. But I think you're good. I think I have more comments than I do questions for you. I don't mind the data, but I'm in a different quadrant than some of the fellow commissioners here with thinking. I like to think outside of the box, but my question would probably be more for the county and Convention Visitor Bureau on, we got the data, we've got what you guys kind of requested for. We've got all these Lego pieces. Now we got to figure out, I guess when we started this, my thinking was, where do we go? What buildings do we fix that the counties have or help fix? What direction do we need to go in so that we can either recoup some of these existing buildings or just demolish them and go new somewhere else? But with all of that comes infrastructure. We're adding to water, we're adding to electrical, so we've got to get a whole lot of components together to decide which direction we're going to go in. I like all the data. One things that kind of maybe I thought maybe would be a fun fact was what other states are we pulling from, that kind of thing. But like I said, I just like to think outside the box and go directly to what are the next steps with the county, what are the next steps with the, the other entities on what goes first, what Lego piece do we need to focus on to help move the ball. So.
Yeah.
Unless you want to ask your question to Matt first, but
No, that's okay, because go ahead and answer this one, because mine actually doesn't have, mine's a little bit different,
Okay.
so.
Matt, it's good to see you again. You're getting tired of seeing me in all these meetings, though, I imagine. That's a great question, but if you heard one of the phrases that Matt used was vision alignment. And to me, and we haven't discussed it any further than hearing the report and so forth, asking Matt some questions a week ago yesterday. And they will be getting a final report to us. And I think it starts with that final report. And then the stakeholders, city, county, CVB, all the different stakeholders that we believe should be a part of this, Manny, then come together to see what that vision is and how we align that vision. And whether it be starting at the fairgrounds, whether it be something with the walkability out by Shulman Crossing, whether it be helping the Sports of the World with the hotel project, whatever that might be. What is that vision? What are we trying to accomplish once we get that final report from Hunden? So I think that's where it starts, but it's all tied around vision alignment with the stakeholders involved.
I understand all of that, and it's gonna, whoever comes in first to put something down on wherever piece of land is available out there, it might change this design. And I guess for my thinking and my vision is, what are we doing to help create jobs and create that vision for professionals when they're looking at coming to move to Garden City? What buildings are they going to move into? Is it going to be one that is falling apart? I mean, that's not a real good image for us, for you, for those professionals who are wanting to stay here and live here and move and make that big jump. I mean, I get that we're going to change on plans, but what do we need to focus on for our future professionals moving forward?
Well, remember, this particular study was about assessing the facilities that we have to hopefully not have duplication and replication of projects. And the report has shown several different times, we need to get behind the community college and their fine arts project. We need to get behind the community college and the Brock Buster Arena and so forth. But our whole purpose over this last year and a half or whatever it's been of putting this study together has been assessing what do we have from a conference, convention space, visitor attraction. It hasn't focused so much on bringing workers to town and that kind of thing. It's been how do we address the conference, convention space? How do we address attracting visitors through those conventions, conferences, through the sports, whatever it might be. So that's been the focus of this particular study, not so much the professionals or people coming to town to work. And lastly, I would say, if you heard Matt during his presentation, this is the third time I've heard him, but each time he's referenced, and he kind of concluded with it a little bit ago in answer to Troy's question, there's things that we do for quality of life within our community that kind of touch on what you're asking, Manny, workers and what attracts them to stay here and so forth. But there's also the piece of what attracts people to come in for the 2 or 3 day stay, the weekend stay, the conference, the convention, and so forth, that builds on beyond what it is for us who already live here. So I think we need to remember there's a couple of different dynamics, and this one is addressing conferences, conventions, a visitor dynamic.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate the explanation. And one thing also to add on that is we need to be behind the infrastructure with the city and the county and getting those kept up with the growing community too. So.
And I would absolutely agree. And I'm just one of 5, but I would agree with that.
And hop on just the comments there.
I want to make one point. Lon mentioned something great there. But I think one thing that we find across all of the work that we do is when you create a place where visitors want to be. So if we look at the Starbond District and try to create something similar to what's maybe slightly smaller in scale, but what Blue Hawk is doing in Overland Park, creating a space like that for visitors, it's just as much for locals. So I think there's something there when you create a space where locals want to be and make it authentic to you all, the visitors will come. So I just want to emphasize that here is that, there's so much quality of life in that element. When you talk about a Starbond district that's more walkable, has more restaurants, when people come there for their first visit and come into the new terminal at the airport and drive in, and that's the first thing they see is a strong walkable district at Schulman Crossing with this great sports facility, the water park, they're going to be sold. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah. Now I was just going to jump on kind of what Commissioner Pishley is saying and just keep in mind the projects that are already going on and making sure we complement them. And I think that's kind of what he's getting at, like we're talking about convention space, who's already working on stuff like that and making sure that there's support. And I believe that Matt and Hunden even had to say stuff like making sure we're supporting projects like the Whartons and doing their meeting space downtown. So just making sure that when we're all deciding what directions to go, let's make sure we pay attention to who's already going in that direction and kind of hop onto those people and do support with those and not necessarily try to change things up from what's already in the works.
Right. Well, it's a balance and trying to match the two together with what we have. My question is more of just a clarifying question on the fairgrounds and on the graph where it shows the bars of the different events in 2020. And I'm just kind of curious because you have, like the gun show and the kennel club and the sunflower truck show and the fair, but then you have some other large bars that aren't labeled. And I'm just kind of curious as to what those events were. Like there was one, it looked like it was either the beginning of September, end of August, and it had about 7,000 people at it, and I don't know I'm just kind of curious as to what those were and what makes the others stand out and these not, so.
Well, I think probably with Matt, I want to echo what Matt said. When we're talking tourism, we're talking quality of life for anything that we bring that a tourist, and I know I've sat in front of you guys and preached the same thing. Whatever's good for a tourist is good for our community. Second of all, on those events, it's probably quinceañeras.
Okay.
We had concerts that happened out there. We had boxing matches. I don't think we did, when it came to the event side of it, we didn't do a comprehensive study because it wasn't a comprehensive study of events, it was facilities. And so not all of those facilities fell inside of those event venues. I mean, Lord knows we have events everywhere we can put something. So, if we can put it in the parking lot, we do it.
And we have.
Downtown, we had a car race, we're getting ready on the 16th,
Right.
motorcycle race. So, not all of the event spaces that we utilize are traditional. So, this is a facility space. So some of those events you're talking about are going to be those events and family reunions, those kind of things that bring people into town that are not a traditional tourism.
Do you think one of them might be Peddler's Market? I don't remember.
Peddler's Market is in October. So
in
yes,
October?
probably one of them.
Okay.
The fairgrounds, because the Sports of the World is going to be, privately run and owned. But I'm wondering if there's a way to help the fairgrounds with some private, because I know it's county owned and their county basically, they use you a lot as the convention visitors to promote. But if there's a way to really help the fairgrounds, because that seems to be one of the big, of the study, that seems to be one of the big opportunities that we might be missing. And so I'm wondering what we could do as a community, especially knowing that the county has already put lots of money in to the fairgrounds and making sure to maximize those dollars. And maybe it's, hiring a firm to help manage or, get additional things into there. So I know there's been a lot of attempts to get additional opportunities there, but I didn't know if that's.
I think the staff that's currently there does a very good job with the fairgrounds right now and the facilities that
It's full.
It's full.
Right.
So they're doing a very good job. I don't want to say that they're not doing a good job. There is opportunity out there to add air conditioning is going to be good, parking, splitting that. So there's a lot of opportunities. I don't think that they're not already doing a good job. I think the event staff out there is amazing.
Yeah, I think they do a really good job in saying, like, some of the suggestions he was talking about, especially when you're talking with a private entity like Sports of the World, making sure that they, keep time for, the different sports, the big sports tournaments. So that's the thing, same thing I think of, is there a way to help the fairgrounds do the same thing? Hey, here's certain times of the year that you might want to keep open because you might have these opportunities for bigger. So I'm saying at the fairgrounds, saying they do a really great job now already, but is there also that same recommendation that you're making for a private, structure like the Sports of the World? Is there a way to help the fairgrounds also, knowing that you've already done the work on this study? So,
Yeah, and having more options like the Wharton's building downtown.
Oh, yeah, that's.
Well, alleviate, because right now the only places you can have large events like that is Expo. So as we can shift those into something that fits them a little bit better, then it
Yeah.
frees up the Expo building to have, like
And
saying,
air conditioning.
Some of those,
I know
yeah,
it's-
well, and conventions and, different things like that, some of those ticketed events that they were talking about. Yeah, I think that there's plenty of opportunities there, so.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And all three of the projects that have been talked about, I think all of those are going to be game changers for us. And on our side of it, to your question, Manny, we need to start preparing as a CVB. We need to start working with our hoteliers and our restaurants and saying, okay, this is coming. This is what's going to be coming with the Sports of the World. This is the beginning of the growth, and we want you to be prepared. I need you to make sure that your staff knows their menus. I need you to make sure that your staff knows how to address your customer base, to answer the questions when they ask, what is there to do in town? Please don't say nothing, because that's
Right.
not true. Go to my calendar.
Yeah, never spent.
Right.
There's something to do, and just incentivizing so that those young professionals want to bring their families here on top of the visitor.
Because I thought that was a really neat idea to also with the shopping, incentivizing people to stay overnight, maybe shop in the morning or whatever, I think. And you've done a really good job with
And I
that
think
too.
we're
but-
already addressing a lot of that. We have a lot of people from the Dodge City area. We have a trade base within 4 hours of us. It's over 5 million people. We're getting approximately 3 million of those here. We're doing a good job. We are an anomaly without a major highway coming through. We are hugely successful in what we do. And so on that side of it, we need to get the word out, yes, and we need to maybe start sending some maps out, because, honestly, we have already had a lot of people who come and they spend the weekend here. Holly, Colorado does it all the time. I visit with people from Dodge City who come over and spend the weekend. They're like, we were going to go to Wichita. It's like, why? When you've got everything that they've got, we would stay in Bradley Fair, or we would stay in this area. And so why would we not just stay and go over to Shulman Crossing and go over, and as Kohl's and Burlington Coat Factory comes in, and then, oh yeah, there's an event going on while that is, and we're going to drop by the zoo. So I think we're already seeing a lot of those weekend visits. Tourism Economic does a study for us, and it shows that our Thursday through Sunday business is the best for our hotels. That used to not be the case when I started here 20 years ago. And so we are building that weekend base. And I feel like we're doing it.
Yeah,
I
nice.
think you are too.
Oh, we got a long way to go, but
Oh, yeah.
Good, we're getting there.
Let's do it.
All right, thanks. Any other questions, comments? All right. Thank you, Matt. Thank you so much for your presentation and for all of the work that you've done on this report. I know that having you come out here and sometimes, as Commissioner Ortiz said, getting us to think outside of the box and really look at what we have and where we could go and really work it together. I think we can really have a really good product here. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt.
Yep, definitely. And thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure. And I circulated the updated deliverable with Roxanne and Micah. So that'll be in your hands, I'm sure, here shortly. And then we can move to a final draft when we get some edits and feedback. So looking forward to it, and all exciting stuff. So appreciate the time. And it's been a pleasure working with you all, and excited for more.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
I did notice that we had some people that came in, and I wanted to make sure if you had some public comment that you had the opportunity to get up and talk, but I didn't want to leave anybody out, so. Okay. Well, if there's no other business, or I guess there is no business, but if there are no more comments, this meeting is adjourned, and thank you all very much for coming.
Yep.
I like the new word node. I've never heard that word before. Well, he talks about the node, which I